You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.
That's right, folks. It's all about how we game, not what to game, not how to game it, not when to game it, but about how we game. That's what we do here.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Thursday night. Hit it, Robert. We are the Beans and Dice podcast. Your host tonight, myself, Carlos Cabrera, Rob Childers, and our host back for, I think, the fourth or fifth time,
Something like that.
Pat Brown from Temple Terrace. And we have a special guest today, last minute, but super excited, Jason Perez of Shelf Stories. Jason, say hi to the folks.
Yo, my peoples, what's up? Hola, ¿qué pasa, mi gente?
Hey, dale.
What was that?
It's okay.
Want to translate for
No,
me?
it's a this thing, not a this
sorry,
thing.
Sorry.
It's this thing.
Yeah, I'm the dice guy. That's why I'm the white guy here.
Right. So it was great because when we started the Beans and Dice, trying to like the nomenclature for the name of the Beans and Dice, I always love saying it. I am the beans, right? And Robert would be the rice of the beans because he's white and flavorless.
Oh, that's what it
Shots
is.
fired. And sometimes salty. Sometimes salty.
A little salty.
But that's my buddy. I love him. We got folks in the chats. Thank you so much for popping in. We've got Furring Workshop, which is Chris Scafidi.
There we go.
We
Cool.
met him at the
St. Louis
Stonemeyer Design Day.
Yeah.
High energy this week. Yes, it is. We got some beers coming in from Blue Basset Brewery. Give us a cheers. Wayne Kruger saying hi to everyone.
Hey, Wayne.
So let's get this popping. Jason, welcome to the show. We're going to open the phone lines up in just a moment
Yeah, we're
here.
going to hold off on just a moment. So if you're trying to call, we're going to talk to Jason for just a minute and just do a little intro, and then we'll open those lines. So we'll let you know when we're open. Well, those lines again. Now you got me doing it. Are one phone line for the moment. But anyway,
Tell us about how you became a gamer.
Man, I'm talking back. I was a kid gamer. I was playing a lot of card games because of my dad. Dominoes.
there you go. Yeah. One of Carlos's favorite terms. Yeah.
So I mean, I got it through my dad, and playing on the beach and playing all over the place, and that was fun. I mean, I guess like hobby gaming. Well, I became a D&D player when I was in high school. Played 2E all through high school. I leveled my mage 1 through I think 17. We reached. We had a really intense campaign, and it was fun. And I've been a geek ever since that D&D stuff.
Nice.
And I found hobby gaming, I think in 2011, whenever Lords of Waterdeep came out. So like Lords of Waterdeep was my gateway into the hobby. Because I was DMing at the time, so I was like, I'm DMing, I'm playtesting 5th edition, I'm into it. And like it's like, oh, here's this new thing we have. It's called a Euro game. What's a Euro game? Europeans have their own games. How fascinating is that?
You're talking my language, Euro games. Yeah.
I played it, and it was like, games do this? This is pretty fun.
Nice.
Like, I don't think I honestly, like, if without that theme, I don't know if I would have. I mean, I probably would have found it anyway because it's all over the place now. But like, it took that theme. It took Mirth the Moneylender and all the different lords. The city's called Waterdeep. It's called Lords of Waterdeep. Why am I blanking?
Forgotten Realms, right?
Forgot. It took that to get me into that stuff. And then once I got that, Pandemic and all the other things that you see here. So
just open
once you got introduced to cubes, thanks to Lords of Waterdeep.
Cubes, I love cubes.
Which is one of the games that Robert and I got. One of the games that I used to get Robert into.
Lords of Waterdeep. That was an early one. Yeah,
because it had cubes. He loves cubes. But what he doesn't love doing is reading the narrative flavor text.
Oh, no. I'm not a theme guy.
I love that. Are you kidding me?
Give me
I
mechanics.
will pause the game. I teach Splendor, and I tell you the theme of Splendor. You are a Venetian merchant, and you are here growing your wealth from tiny mines to buying estates. And like, what are you talking about? Just play.
Well, if you're a D&D guy, that explains it. Yeah. So I was never into the D&D side, but yeah, I'm a mechanics guy. But anyway.
Well, my rule was we need to read the flavor text.
He makes me stop. And what does it say at the bottom of that card? What does it say?
Right.
Before he does any
read that
actions.
to me. Yeah.
The italics. Give me the italics. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I live.
and then of course had to replace the D&D the cubes with the D&Deeples. I think they called them back then D&Deeples. And I would make Robert say, no, it's not an orange cube. It's a fighter, Robert. It's a fighter.
It's a fighter. And
give me 2 oranges.
It's too many of them to name. Like we would go like Joe, Bob, Jim Bob, and Billy Bob.
That's my daughter. My daughter names everything in all the games. Yeah.
Just want to shout out Wayne Kruger. Yes, I am from Connecticut, but I'm actually originally from New York. Connecticut is my adopted home. So I've been here since 2015.
Wayne is also a co-host. He's been here many times, and he is from New York as well. So I guess he can tell. I guess maybe y'all have a convention. You all get together, all New Yorkers and
the transplants. Yes, that we needed. I would love a transplant convention. Whenever I go to like a con, I seek out the New Yorkers. Like I need to get the vibe. I need to get like when I go to PAX Unplugged or something. If I know someone's from the city, I'd be like, all right, we're having at least lunch.
Nice.
Well, phone lines are open, folks. 813-618-7099. It's your chance to ask some questions to the table and Jason to kind of pump that conversation and get us started. So we talked about you with D&D. I listened. All right, so just for the folks, recently Jason's been on his show. He's had Jamie Stegmaier. Where they had an awesome conversation about FOMO.
Yep.
And deluxification of games and the impact to the mental, emotional health of the gaming community. And just listening to that, there's so much of that I'm like 100% in line with. Like these are things that I've always screamed about is the deluxification of game and the impact to the community that cannot partake in that level of expenditure.
And I'll be honest with y'all. I was nice.
Oh, really? You were holding back a little bit? Yeah.
I mean, he's
got Stegmaier on there. The guy just dropped a $200 miniatures sale.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Just minis.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it takes me a while to kind of like, so something will happen and I'll see something and I'll get like a thought, but it takes me a while to kind of form it. And it came to me. So like I released the episode and and also Jamie put it on his blog, right? So he linked it and he had some further thought. So like there was a decent amount of conversation about it. And then the amount of stands for capitalism, the amount of people that are just like, well, we have to have companies that have to be free to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And, it's on us, the consumer. And I knew that was going to like happen because I said it, the show's going to happen. But like the amount of people that are like, we cannot ever ask the publishers for anything ever. They give it to us. And it's like, we can ask. They're people too. Like if we notice that the community, like if people haven't seen the show, like the basic thesis, like Deluxe is fine. We've had Deluxe with us the entire time. I think we're in a moment with crowdfunding and with online, like you mentioned before the show, like when we were off the show, like the online thing. People want to like ignore it. Like, no, we can't ignore it. So many of us are online forever now. That's just the way it is. And crowdfunding advertises online. So like that has an effect. It does. Like you every time you open one of these things, banner ad. Every time you scroll down Facebook, oh look, I have this, I got this. Look, I got a box. Oh my god.
Oh, we got a call coming in. Let's hope it's real. Beans and Dice podcast. State your name and where you're calling from.
Hey, it's Chris Scafidi calling from Oregon.
It is real. Hello, Chris.
Chris.
How you doing?
Good. We are well. I've got Jason from Shelf Stories on the line. I've seen you in the comments, so I think you're aware. What do you got for us, Jason? I want to introduce you to Chris. Chris, we met Chris in St. Louis at the Jamie invited us to his design day last year. So Robert and I went up to Missouri, St. Louis, stayed out there. We got to play games with Chris. He's a designer who had brought games out there for the prototyping that Jamie does each year. And we had an awesome, I think we played like 3 or 4 games with Chris
afterwards we just kind of hung out and played some games. So
we had a good time.
So we've been connecting ever since. It's been amazing. So welcome to the show again, Chris.
I'm going this year to Jamie's.
Oh, we'll be back. So we'll see you there.
We got our tickets
That's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, good. Looking forward to going too. I got my ticket. It's kind of a question to me of whether or not the airline prices come down to a reasonable level.
Okay.
You can drive like I do.
See.
Yeah, Carlos does the how many hours? Yeah.
I think I'm only half as crazy as you, but I would have to drive twice as far.
Oh.
So I just wanted to chime in on the whole deluxification thing. I'm not opposed to publishers creating games that are like really high quality and durable. So if you're going to deluxify a game, you're probably not going to get my money if you're just spending money, like if you're just going to be spending money on making it look fancy. But if you're spending money on like creating a more durable product, that's going to get me interested because I don't have a ton of money in my games budget. So what I buy has to last. Mm-hmm. So for me, like I'm willing to pay a little bit more if I know that I'm going to get my money's worth out of it. Like a great example is Nut Hunt from Jasper at Pine Island. That came out just yesterday. He announced he's going to be doing 2 millimeter thick tiles. And to me, that's like, okay, now I got to very seriously consider, do I want to buy in? Because I was thinking, maybe I'll buy it down the road, but now I'm thinking I'll buy it because it's higher quality. So I would just throw that into the mix about deluxification too. Deluxification doesn't have to be about making people afraid they're going to miss out on something. Sometimes it actually is about giving more value to the customer for the money that they are going to spend. And that's a really good thing. And I actually would love to reward publishers who care about making our money stretch farther.
Yeah, I totally agree. I appreciate, my favorite game is Pandemic, and my Pandemic is struggling. That game a lot.
I'm so sad.
Struggle busting it.
And my Lords of Waterdeep also, you should see the box. It's ridiculous. So my issue with deluxification, I think that a lot of people kind of like when you talk to an individual person, the chances are that they'll make decent enough decisions with their own money. The issue is that when a publisher is kind of like shooting advertising through like a fire hose at the online community, like they can't just say, okay, I'm selling a more durable game. If you're online, then you have like a tiny window of people's attention, right? Otherwise they'll just scroll right past. So it's like when you have that tiny window of attention, what does a publisher need to fill it with? They need to fill it with 3D tiles, and even though this makes the game barely unplayable, we're going to do it. Dwellings of Eldervale, which is a good game, but those houses need to make sounds.
Oh yeah,
really?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I totally get what you're
There's
saying.
nothing to do with anything.
The last time I bought a deluxe game, I actually am kind of regretful about it. I'm not going to name the game, but I bought it, and
it's okay. We name names here. Nobody watches this show. Nobody watches this show.
I'm not gonna do that because I got to get along with these people. But it looks really good on the table, and the artist is one of my favorite artists in the world. But the mechanics are like overcomplicated by the publisher, and like in the end, I'm kind of regretful that I bought the deluxe version.
And that's what I worry about, right? I'm a capitalist. I'm honest about that. I'm a capitalist. I just feel like there's too much.
Yeah.
There's too much, and it just makes.
Right.
And I don't worry about like the established gamers like us. We're hooked.
Yeah.
I worry about like
The
my
new gamers,
coworkers
yeah.
that I want to bring into the populace.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then they get sucked into that Kickstarter world, and then they feel like Chris described, right? Then they get that
That regret.
disenchantment with it.
Yeah.
And then they're back to doing the hobbies they were doing before. I'm going to go watch football and baseball and get away from these board games because it's just a money trap.
Yeah.
So I really don't want to. I don't want to poo-poo on deluxes. I just want to know: is there a balance? Can we find a balance? Chris, great points, man.
Yeah, I think we really have to. I appreciate you bringing the subject up because it does need to get discussed. And I also think, I'm going to be self-publishing beginning next year. I'll also continue working with publishers because, they have brands and they have focuses and I can help them with that. But I'll be getting into self-publishing, and all of the stuff that I'm going to be focused on is adding value to the game and not just making it look fancier because, there are people in the world who can't just waste money on games, and you got to be sensitive to that. So that's my 2 cents, and thanks for letting me call you guys up.
I appreciate you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for calling, Chris.
So, Chris Graffiti, before we finish up on his conversation here, let me change the phone lines open. He sent us a copy of his design that he self-published, Nomadic Gardeners. And I told him how happy I was to see it, because when it arrived at my door, not only did it have an awesome handwritten note from Chris, just chatting with us and checking up on us, but I love small box games. I love the price points of these games. I love the portability. So his design, Nomadic Gardeners, by Fervent Workshop is what he calls himself. Got another call coming in. Let's see what it is. Beans and Dice Podcast. State your name and where are you calling from?
Hey guys, it's Wayne calling from Mystic, Connecticut.
Hey, not from
How you
Connecticut, but in Connecticut, right?
In Connecticut, yes. From Long Island originally, but no, in Connecticut this week.
Long Island? Oh, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
What you got going on tonight, Wayne?
Nothing, just chilling, enjoying the show, the topic. I think Carlos sort of was making my point earlier about it's the marketing that's targeting those people in different sort of where they are in the life cycle of game buying. right? Like you make fun of me, guys, that I always bring out the old games, right? Because I have
A little bit.
games in my collection.
If I ever want to play anything with an old white guy farmer on the cover, I can count on Wayne
Wayne's
to bring
got
it to me.
Yeah, Wayne can bring it to the game day. Yeah.
There you go. No, but the point being is I don't buy a lot of games anymore. I'm not all about the new hotness and the FOMO, but if there's a deluxified version of a game coming out that I love, Brass or Castles of Burgundy, I'm going to buy it because I know the game. I've been playing the game for 10 or 15 years, and I have no problem spending 100 or 150 bucks on that game because I'm only going to buy 3 or 4 games a year. But like Carlos said, those new people in the gaming that have that desire to just play everything, and they buy new games every week, sight unseen, and they see in these Kickstarter comments, and they see the Facebook ads time after time after time. That's where I think where Jason's getting at is like those people don't know necessarily what they're buying, and they're being tricked by marketing, not tricked, but they're being led by marketing to buy things that, they probably don't need, because you can get copies of Castles of Burgundy for $30 that are perfectly fine and playable. You can play it on BGA. You can, especially some of the older games, right? And so these things look so pretty and you want to play them because it's this really well-regarded game, but do you need to spend $100 on a game you've never played?
$100? Are you kidding me? That's a target game.
Yeah, I mean, there's two,
There's way past $100 in that one.
Yeah.
There's something I've been wanting to say. So, sorry. I'm at a point where I'm actually purging a lot of my collection, and I don't. I have nowhere near the collection that Carlos has.
Carlos
and
got
a lot
behind
of
us,
a lot of my stuff is a lot of family oriented stuff. But I've realized too, it's about realizing, my friends actually have a lot of these games that I could just play. I don't need to play it all the time.
If you've got a Carlos, yeah.
And I think it's a lot of it is voting with your wallet and realizing what resources you have, like not just your money, but your relationships as well. And kind of leaning on your friends, like, hey, I would like to play this game. Can we schedule a night where we can play that game?
Wayne, what do you think about that?
I think it's valid. I mean, I think you, especially not only in our friends group, we probably have between everyone that I've met through your show, there's probably 2,000 or 3,000 games easy. We could do a Dice Tower library easily out of all of our game collections.
Yep.
And then you have game stores, and you have Your Turn Board Game Cafe. You have all these places. You have libraries now that have games. So
yeah.
You don't have to be, and you guys know, I was a huge Kickstarter guy. I'm 50, 70, 75 Kickstarters in, but probably in the last year and a half, I'm like 3, so I've definitely slowed down. I think that there's this life cycle of board game buying where you get into it, you get the bug, you start buying games, then you go crazy buying games, and then you realize, oh God, I got 300 or 400 board games. I need to slow it down. I'm not even playing, when your shelf of opportunity is half the size of your game collection, you need to slow down, and I think that's where you're going to see these kind of like cycles of these game companies need new gamers that are going to spend big money on new games, because people like me and some of us have kind of like, well, we're more discerning now. I'm not just going to go buy every game that comes out, and there's too many to buy. So, I mean, I think that's part of the problem too. But I'm starting to purge too. I'm at the point, I'm 1 in, 1 out. Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I love that we point about life cycle. Like, and I think what's happening is the cycle's getting faster. Like if you started at like, I could start at 2011, I guess. And it took me, I don't know, 6 years, maybe 6 or 8 years, because I kind of interrupted with reviewing. I started my first podcast in 2016. So that kind of, you do a review podcast, you just keep playing. So then I didn't get that like kind of bubble bursty, got a call stuff until, I don't know, a couple years ago. And so that took 6, 7 years. And I think that I've read articles like, 5, 6, 7 years is the lifetime. Now we're getting there in like 2.
Yeah.
Because the games are like way more expensive.
I'm trying to remember the number. Michael from Armada Games, the shop owner at our local shop, he mentioned it on how many games were released last year.
Yeah.
Oh,
wasn't it like over 10,000?
Or 7,000 stick in my mind. But
7,000?
7 to 10,000. Yeah, 7,500. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
No one can play that many games in a year.
And think about how many games actually become popular too.
Except for
out
Steph
of all
Hodge.
those
Steph
games.
Hodge can play all those games. She's nuts. If
That's
somehow you get this, Steph, you're nuts.
That's my buddy Mitch out of Louisiana. He plays 4 or 5 games a night.
Yeah,
it's insane.
But still, 7,500.
Right, Wayne, talk us out. What else you got?
No, that's it. Just enjoying my week, playing a lot of light family games this week. So I'm enjoying it. Been I've heard Tampa was a little warm this week, upwards near 90 in the high 90s.
It was a feels of 114 today.
Yeah, so I heard 110, but yeah.
I walked out and was like,
I've been enjoying the 70-degree weather, so it's been fun.
Yeah.
Well, you enjoy Connecticut. I'm sure
Yep.
Jason can give you some ideas of good stuff to eat if you reach out to him.
No, I
He's
can't.
very
actually.
responsive.
No, he can't.
I'm still a New Yorker at heart.
all
I go
York,
back
yeah.
anytime. I cheat on Connecticut all the time.
Ah,
Well, there's your answer.
you
Head north.
There you go.
thanks for
Have a good
calling,
night,
Wayne.
guys.
Have a good night.
See ya.
That's our buddy Wayne from Lutz, Florida. He's a transplant now.
He's right around the corner here.
He was a caller into the show for a while there. He found out about us because Stonemeyer mentioned us at one point, and he started calling into the show. And after like a few months, I realized he was Florida. I asked where, and he told me Lutz. I'm like, bro, I'm in Lutz. Found out we're like 15 minutes from each other.
wow.
It's just around the corner.
I
Yeah.
say, hey, come to the house.
Small
Come
world.
play some games. And ever since then, he's been a co-host.
Yeah.
He's been on multiple times and
Yeah.
a lot of videos. That's how I do. And talking about what Pat brought up, great point, except for phone
another
calls.
caller coming in. Yeah. Let's grab the next
Don't
one.
worry
Is that what
about
we
it,
do
Pat.
here? Phone
Yeah,
calls?
it's a
Hold
phone
that
call-in
one.
show.
Slow your roll.
Beans and Dice podcast. State your name. Where are you calling from?
This is Ron Frazier from Atlanta.
Hey, Rob Frazier. How are
My
you?
man.
I am doing great.
We have Jason Perez from Shelf Stories on the line.
I think I've seen Ron comment on a couple of my videos. What's going on, buddy?
Yes, I have. And I'm a fan of your content.
I appreciate that.
Your phone's crackling a bit there. I'm not sure if it's the headphones.
Maybe outside.
Are you in the wind?
No. Yeah, I'm sorry.
There we go. That's better.
That's a lot better. You got it.
That's a lot better. Sorry about that.
No
Anyway, I'm in Atlanta, so it's not as hot as it is in Tampa, but it's pretty hot.
I imagine. Hot Atlanta.
They call it Hot Atlanta for a
Yeah,
reason.
There's a
say,
reason.
Right. So I had to call in on this topic because although I never saw the video with Jason and Jamie having the discussion, when I get the time, I do a little segment on the Dice Tower Board Game Breakfast called Affordable Board Games.
There you go.
Yes, you do.
Because when I was 15, living in an urban environment, not a lot of money rolling around, I had to ask myself the question. I started with D&D, didn't really get into board games until well into my adulthood. If 15-year-old me were interested in this hobby, could I afford a $100 game? No way, right? And it's like, and I buy expensive games. I mean, just this week I bought Star Wars Out of Rim and Unfinished Business. But I'm in a different place than I was. And I think of the people that I grew up with, the neighborhoods that I lived in, and we are, we're trying to grow this hobby, and a $175 game is antithetical to that.
Man, Ron, you're talking to my heart, dude. Because you and I grew up similar circumstances. We talked about it before, and
Yeah.
Carlito from 22nd Street could never be a part of the hobby as we see it today, right? And it's not about the inclusion of bringing people in, right? There's that wall by building games at this level and this price point.
Barrier, yeah.
You've built an economic class wall
Yes.
of people of all colors, of all backgrounds,
Yeah.
to be able to get into. You're speaking my heart.
Yep. Yeah. And so, from what I understand in the situation, though, it's just an advertising blitz for this particular game.
Mhm.
Is that right? Yeah.
I mean, this is advertising blitz for every game.
Yeah.
If it's on Kickstarter,
Yeah,
you're gonna get
yeah,
blitzed.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially on Board Game Geek, you're blasted with the next Kickstarter
Advertisements
every
constantly.
day.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's just it's fine for those games to exist, but like I feel like that's all everybody talks about.
The new hotness.
All these the YouTube reviewers and content creators and all this stuff. That's what I see. When I'm on Instagram, I'm scrolling through Instagram. Seems like all I'm seeing are deluxe games, and we have to be more mindful of that as a community.
So I'll give the counter argument, right? Because that's what I got a lot of pushback when I got to my thing on Twitter and everything. So the counter argument is that, like, yes, there's deluxe, but if you go to the game stores, you can still buy cheap games, and there's still plenty of cheap games. Like you can still buy Catan, Pandemic, and so that the classics are still there. None of this stuff's out of print. And then you have like newer games like Azul, Code Names, Cascadia has just come out. Cascadia is super cheap. And Cascade is a really, really good game. So then, like, if you go to the game stores and the Targets and stuff, that those games are still there for people. So it's almost like board gaming is on two tracks. So you can go down the online blitzy blingy track, or you could go to different places and you can get kind of cheaper, more accessible games. So then I don't know what people think about that. Like, because I mean, I have my thoughts about it, but there are people that really believe it. That's like, you know what? Leave the deluxe people alone. Y'all got your games. Everybody has games for everybody. And I don't know what do people think about the availability of cheaper games?
Go, Ron.
I kind of feel like I've heard this argument before, in a different arena. Why can't people have that kind of access to purchasing online? Of course, you can buy cheap games online, and you can buy deluxe games in game stores, but there shouldn't have to be a division. And that kind of argument makes it sound like there needs to be this division, so that I won't be bothered and maybe made uncomfortable. So as far as game stores are concerned, there are neighborhoods that are not served by game stores. They would have to go to Walmart.
You know something, preach on that one, because I got into Twitter thing. I'm sorry for interrupting, but you tickled something.
That's why we brought you on the show, Jason.
To be tickled. I got into a whole bunch of comments. They're like, well, if I go to the game store, then I could buy these cheap games, and there's plenty of games. Why are you going crazy about deluxe? And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't grow up next to a game store. I'm Jay from Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And we didn't have no game store in Sunset Park. We didn't have no game store, or like South Brooklyn, basically. In Sunset Park at the time, it was called Gunset Park. That should tell you everything you need to know about that.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in the 80s. So, like, you would go into the public pool and they'd be like crack valves and stuff and needles, and you got to like watch yourself. So, like, it's so like that wasn't available to us. And even now, like, I mean, the city's gotten a lot different, a lot better. And there's another game store in like South Brooklyn. It's not the penetration isn't nearly as much as people want to think. So it's like, I think we could do a lot more.
Yeah, people have no idea. I'm from New Orleans, and there is one game store in New Orleans. It is not in New Orleans proper. It's in Jefferson Parish. And like, if you are poor and you live, you live in a nice ward or something, you'd have to get on, get on the bus or get a ride to go, to make a nice 20, 25-minute drive just to go to this game store.
That's a valid point. Robert and I got to visit New Orleans for the first time
just out there
this past year. We went out to a convention out in Lafayette, got invited out there, but we stopped in New Orleans for a couple days.
Yeah.
And you're right, Rob. We didn't see any.
Yeah, I don't remember any game
Rob
stores
and I,
out there. Yeah.
Whenever we travel, game stores are a thing.
Yeah, we try to hit them
And you're
up.
right, Ron.
Yeah,
like they're not serviced.
Right. Plus One Gaming. I've been there before. I love it. It's great. But it's not in New Orleans proper, right? Like, so, yeah. So
we could definitely do a lot better. Like, we could do a lot better with the stores and the cafes, man. Like, the FLGS, I could, if that went the way of the dinosaur, I wouldn't mind. It's like a giant like warehouse full of nothing but games. I'm good. But like, you know, something where you could sit and you can eat and, you know, like a cafe style thing. And, you know, you can have a whole evening. Like that should be the paradigm to me. And there's lots of places that are opening like, and I think most of the new ones that I know of, they incorporate something like that. It's just, you know, I wonder how much publishers are supporting them. And I wonder how much, you know, and again, this is open questions, right? So like if you're a publisher and you see the easy honey pot, if I put a giant mini in my game and I charge $150 for this mini, I can get, like Jamie said it, like the Marvel Zombie side got the 6,000 backers at the top level, $600. That's a lot of money. And so it's like, there's a lot of publishers that wouldn't turn away from that, and they kind of gear their offerings towards that. It's like, are they supporting, like physically supporting gaming on the store level? Are they physically supporting gaming, you know, like gaming evangelists, that they take the whatever cheap games we're getting and we're kind of disseminating it, you know? And maybe that's and people are going to say, well, that's not one or the other. You could do both. It's like, well, I want to see it. That's
right. I want to see the both. We say we can do both, but can we?
Are we doing it? Yeah, exactly. You know, is it really happening? And you know, we're not going to. And you know, if your only intention is to get people like us to shut our mouths, then I'm sorry, you don't know a good Latino.
Ron Fraser, it is always a pleasure to talk to you, man. I'm so looking forward to. I think we're counting down the weeks.
Yeah, just 3 weeks now till Dice Tower.
We see Ron again,
Dice Tower East,
in Dice Tower. So we look forward to see you, Poppy. We appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Appreciate you, Ron.
Talking to you and talking to Jason.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Thanks, Jason, for coming on, man. We really do appreciate it. Good night, Ron.
My brother. I always welcome your comments.
All right, it's Ron Fraser from Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Great.
Yeah, good discussion.
And Ron is not afraid to poke back. We did a podcast recently, and we reviewed a copy of Endeavor, Age of Sail, and we touched on that third rail of that slavery deck. And first one in our comments was Ron to push back on my position on the game with some really eloquent words. And
what's
that's
your
what
position on Endeavor Age of Sail? I'm curious about that.
Okay, so let's do it.
Let's jump in there.
As a Puerto Rican, as an Afro-Rican, half my family is Afro-Rican, my dad's side. My mom's side is Euro-Puerto Rican. You know, Taino. There's the statue in San Juan. The three people in one. Taino Indian, European slave owner, and then African slave. We are three people in one. I have cousins that are red hair, green-eyed, that are as close to me as anything. And I got cousins as dark as night. And then I'm like somewhere in the middle, right? Because we're three people in one. I do not like when games ignore the slave aspect of history, right? Because I feel like it's ignoring a third of my ancestry. Now, how we bring it up, that topic, right? That's the tough part. Like Puerto Rico, calling the brown disc a colonist. That's not quite. That's not quite how my people remember it.
Yeah, how you see it. Yeah, how you remember it.
We weren't hard scrabble immigrants trying to find our way.
No, exactly.
The fact that the Endeavor Age of Sail brings you the deck and then allows the opportunity for the table to decide how that slavery deck will work in the game, meaning you can use it to tap it for resources and quick wins. But if as a table we come together and banish it, you now lose points, you lose access to all those workers you had, all that industry you had, right? The tough part is convincing the rest of the board to join me in abolishing that deck. Because, man, humanity comes out and people start using that deck to really build their empire. And that's where Ron challenged me on it. He's like, why does there have to be a mechanism about it, right? A mechanism that gives you benefits. Can't we talk about it, explore it, share about it, but not make it something that you benefit from? Do we have to? And that I was talking to my wife about that. Like that kind of hit me hard. Like, dang, do we even really need it in there? But how do we do it without acknowledging it? And me, I'm a person where, you know, Jason, you and I, you'll be surprised. We don't agree on a lot, right? We have and that's the conversations you and I have had on YouTube's because I'll come back.
You
clap back and I clap back.
The most disagreements that I've ever had with people with other Puerto Ricans.
Interesting.
Because we are three people in one. We are very dynamic. We are not one thought process people.
Opinionated?
Yes. But it's great because for me, I'm not a person trapped in one line of thought. I can have two thoughts in my head and they can be opposing. And I know there's somewhere in the middle I got to be there, like in my head. So how do we acknowledge, establish, celebrate a third of my ancestry in these colonization games, as Jason calls them, games about colonization, without completely whitewashing it? Where's that balance?
Something that came to my mind was that you're saying that the slavery deck gives them points. It sounds like this thing is pretty powerful, which I find very strange because, Alexis de Tocqueville said in his book Democracy in America, he contrasted before the Civil War that the North was prosperous. There was no slavery in the North. Abolitionism was a huge movement in the North. And then he moved down to the South, or he was traveling to the South, and he saw that with slavery came the poverty of everybody, and that most people were down on their luck no matter what their race or was, and he saw that there were few people at the top, and it didn't matter who they were. So, I mean, I find that confusing. Does that mechanic even work or accurately depict what slavery did?
It pushes
to society?
on the industry track, and mostly the industry track. You're not getting like the culture. I can't remember the icon.
Yeah,
I didn't know there was.
And it's not.
I never played the game.
It's not overpowered. I will say it is. There's the European deck and then there's the slavery deck, and they are both, without getting all the details of the game, they both are in the starting region where everybody has to start out. So you have to branch out. You have to get paths into other parts of the world. But the slavery deck is just a slightly better version of each of the cards in the European deck. So you can take the European deck, or you can take the slavery deck, which might have one more icon, one more boost on it, one more little push on it. So it's not really hugely overpowered like we may be making it out.
Right.
But there is definitely an edge to using it. And so it makes for interesting decisions early in the game. Is do I, for that little push, that little bit of benefit, is it worth grabbing that and then hoping, that the rest of the, like Carlos said, the rest of the table doesn't get together and be like, Rob took 2 of those slavery cards. We're gonna flip that on him, and now it's going to be negative points for him at the end of the game instead of positives. So, yeah.
Okay, see, I didn't know you get negative points for taking the cards if they flip it over.
If they flip
That's
it.
the
I
key.
didn't know
Is
that.
convincing the rest of the
Okay.
table to join me in abolishing it. So then taking away not
Right.
only all the benefits they gained, but then turning those cards into negative points.
Negative point each, yeah.
But man, I feel like if that mechanism wasn't the way it was, it wouldn't drive these kind of conversations at the table.
Yeah.
About, wow, look at humanity pop out. Look at the greed step in and say, you know what? I remember my buddy. I called him out for it.
You said it, yeah.
My buddy Mikey. He's from the Virgin Islands, so he's like he considers himself half Puerto Rican, half black. He says the lower half is black. Moving on. So we're playing the game, and I'm like,
Don't
hey,
look
Mikey.
up BBC on the Urban Dictionary. Don't do that.
No.
This is why I love this show. Is we just have fun.
After dark.
Yeah, it's important topics, but we still have fun. But Mikey, I'm like, hey, Mikey, we grew up together, 22nd Street, right, from the same area.
Yeah, here we go. Flip it on me. Come on.
Okay, I'll throw Rob
So I
in there.
started out.
And
Yeah.
Rob's
I
like,
took
I'm
the
going to
slavery
grab one of
cards.
these cards. And I'm like, Mikey, you and me, we got this. We're going to abolish this, right? Because we both come from, and Mikey looks at me and goes, I think I'm going to take one of those too. And I'm like, damn, Mikey, I would have never guessed from you.
Yeah.
So it's that, but that drives that conversation that like, for me, I just feel the morality of it doesn't okay, D&D, big D&D gamer. I could never do any chaotic evil or anything like that players.
Yeah.
I can't play that role. Like, I feel like I need to be a good guy. I need to make good decisions because morality, I reflect it in what I play.
Yep.
But what I found is, not everyone feels that way. They don't let their morality reflect anything. They play the way they think benefits them the most, min-maxing. So it elicited some really cool conversations at the end of that game about, tell me about why you went that way. And, I thought we were like together, like mi gente, but no, it didn't work out that way. What are your thoughts, Jason, on that deck? Have you played it?
I looked at it, right? Because I did a whole tour of the different colonization games to kind of educate myself. It's cheap. I'll be straight up right now. It's cheap. So then it's a way to talk about slavery without actually getting into the guts of what it takes to be a slave owner. Like, a slave owner is an a-hole. Let's just put it out there, right? If you are a slave owner, you're an a-hole. Why did I say that? Because nobody wants to be a slave. So everyone wanted to be free, and some of them rebelled, and some of them ran away, and some of them slowed their work down. Some of them killed their masters. Some of them stole their stuff. They like slaves did not want to be free. You could like you go up and down the original sources, and they're always kind of talking about like how do I keep my slaves in line? How do I do all this stuff? So then okay, where is that in the game? Like where is the possibility of slaves escaping or losing stuff? So like you mentioned Puerto Rico. How about I roll a d6 every time I produce, and on a 6, slave goes away. They ran away, or they died from heat exhaustion or whatever.
Kind of what Pat was talking about, because I recently read a book about Civil War history as well, and I can't remember what it was, but it was a deep book. It was long. It took me a long time to get through it.
Right.
But it really talked about the cost to the education of the white folks in the South because of slavery. Because of slavery, they didn't have to learn to do stuff for themselves.
Right.
They didn't educate themselves or even learn how to manufacture.
Yeah.
Right. They were behind. So you're right. How do you, Jason, add the context of slavery isn't just a cost of expenditure of getting them, but also to your populace,
like that's
to
what
your society.
It is. Like that's what it is in games. Games make it cheap labor. Right, a free labor. You put the slave somewhere, it gives you things. So like Endeavor Age of Sail, it's like it gives you that choice, right? So it's like, do you want to go down, the heavy resource path and exploit this labor, or do you want to be a good guy, an abolitionist? And that's not the way the world worked. I mean, it took the whole world hundreds of years to achieve liberation, and the slaves themselves don't have any agency whatsoever. So like they're just there as labor. So it's like if you're gonna make a historical game, and you can't give agency to the slaves or like make the player feel like a total jerk for doing it, then I don't think you got any business making it. I'm sorry. And so it's like I understand about the conversations and everything. So it's like, okay, you can make the game, but you have to make it clear you are an a-hole playing this game. Like, and if you're willing to play an a-hole, then fine. And there's plenty of games you play a-hole. Like, what you call it, like Jack the Ripper, the Letters from Whitechapel.
Right.
That's a mass murderer, right? So like you're not gonna take that to game night. Oh, let's go murder some women and chase them down or whatever it is. So like, or any of that like real world type games. So like there's room for that. But like I think publishers want it both ways, but they want the history and they want to excite people, but they also want the mass market sales, so they whitewash. Right. So it's like, okay, we're done with whitewashing. At least I'm done with whitewashing. I got plenty of ways to kind of reform some of this stuff. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we for 20 years we've been trying to get away with, having these kind of half conversations about slavery and forced labor and all kind of things. It's like, okay, no, if you want to put in the game, really put in the game.
And that's what Chris comes in. He's in the comments. He says, in the game, maybe it would have been more thematic if using slaves had a cost, some education / culture, rather than just costing VP at the end of the game, on the off chance that the other players flipped it. So some greater cost. Yeah, I think Jason's point is it's too simplified,
too easy. Yeah.
Well, how do we also acknowledge sometimes that like slavery is still going on in the world? It's not just over, just because America abolished it back in the Civil War. And then
I don't know. I've always had an issue with recency of games. And Jason, you tell me what you think of this thought process. I like playing World War II games. Mm-hmm. It's damn near 80 years now, right?
Yeah.
We just celebrated D-Day, right?
Almost.
Right.
In this June. But man, I won't play modern war games that have to do with Afghanistan or the war in Iraq. I just feel like that's too
close.
recent.
Too close, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like there's that recency thing. Like I'm just starting to expand into like Vietnam games.
There was one publisher, like I couldn't even. They pulled this down immediately, but this is the kind of thought process that publishers get into. So like they have this, so when the war in Ukraine broke out, right? This was like 4 months ago now. Like they have a game about Ukrainian revolution in 1912 or whatever. So they pop on Twitter. It's like, okay, do you want to learn more about the current conflict in Ukraine? Play our game, available in our web store. What? It's like
like cringe marketing.
Yeah.
That is so cringe. Like let people like settle into the trauma of what's happening first. Like like the whole thing that helps us kind of engage with history. I'm a history person. I'm not a person that says, "Oh, history is bad." We gotta play these games. We gotta engage in tough, difficult things. And I like having the conversations. I don't want it to be like cheap and like in whitewashed. And B, like I do think there should be some time in order to settle it down. Like, World War II is the most gamified war in the world. You can go in any game store, you'll see.
I
grew up with it.
Just look behind my shelf.
He's got half a shelf back.
I mean,
like Axe and
that's a theme I love.
all that, So like,
but I feel like so much time has passed that I'm not. Like I have friends.
Well, we also weren't alive.
Who have dealt with the modern wars and are still dealing with it with their families. I could never play those games and feel kosher. But then I feel like guilty for saying, but World War II is fine. Like it's like nobody really died, right?
Why not World War I?
Whoa, right? Because it was boring. It was just trenches and machine guns at each other.
How close is too close? Yeah.
Did you play Battlefield 1? No,
but I like Jason's answer and listening when he talks about, because Jason isn't about, my understanding of watching Jason, have been a fan, isn't about canceling or stopping what we have. But it's how do we add to the board game realm that changes thoughts, right? So, for example, he talks about how about we add counter colonization games, and he talks about Spirit Island as like one of the best.
Oh yeah,
like how do you add games that show you what the oppressed were dealing with to teach you more, or to maybe play as the oppressed against the oppressor?
Something? It's like we get these games. So like we're in our fantasy. Right? In our fantasy, what are we playing? We're always playing the underdog in fantasy. Frodo and underdog. Harry Potter grew up under the stairs, right? And
where Rob likes his kids.
Yeah,
right? Luke Skywalker on some faraway planet or something. Like we're always playing underdogs. But then when we get to historical games, we always play the boss. And so it's like this massive imbalance to me. And it's always been weird to me. So it's like, in historical games, we're playing the Empire. We're always playing Empire. Imagine playing Star Wars and saying, well, I want to play the giant Death Star today.
I mean, have you played Rebellion? Playing the Empire is cool. The best.
Yeah, no, I love Star Wars Rebellion. I believe me. But it's like, put it this way: who's playing the cooperative game where you're playing one side, and it's like I'm sitting down and playing the Rebellion. You can play War of the Ring. You can play Star Wars Rebellion. You can play these head-to-head games. That's cool. No one ever is going to sit there and go, okay, I want to be, Palpatine and Darth Vader, and I want to go crush the rebels today. No one's going to sit there and do that. I mean, not no one, but not enough to kind of make penetration in sales. So that's basically what you're doing in a colonization game. You're playing Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine, wiping out the rebels. Why are you doing this? I'm sorry, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, interesting point. Yeah.
But man, I don't know. I can't get away from and maybe it's that Caribbean in me. Because at minimum, I love all the games set in the Caribbean. Pirate games, Pick Up and Deliver, Merchants and Marauders, right? All these different, because I feel like, wow, that's my island is on the map. And although that may not be enough representation, it's acknowledgement of look, that's my island. That's where my people are from. That feels good. Yes, there can be better ones.
So even if it's done in a negative way,
I still want it. It's
something is better than nothing. Yeah,
which maybe I shouldn't be settling on that, and that's the key piece. Is there should Puerto Rico needs an update maybe. I don't know, but I have not played Spirit Island yet.
It's good.
Okay. I'm willing to try.
I need to be coy about this, but they have announced an update for Puerto Rico.
Oh, they did.
Yes,
my man.
We're getting
push it in the back. We're getting pushing strings in the back.
We're getting a post-colonial version of Puerto Rico. I can't say more until.
Yep.
Oh, you heard it here, folks. Breaking news.
Let's not get Jason in trouble now. No, easy.
I will. I picked it. Puerto Rico's still in shrink. Right? Yeah, I have it. I bought it because it says Puerto Rico, but it's still in shrink. It's just
put it back, man. No, get that thing on get a math trade going on that one. I got there's something else that's coming that's will be pretty cool.
Awesome.
Glad to hear that.
Good news.
Well, we're about 10 minutes to the end of the show. I think we've gone. I really feel we've gone so deep in topic.
Yeah,
we might have scared some folks.
Fine. Yeah, probably a lot of people listen. I mentioned this before with certain callers and certain guests we've had. That sometimes when we get onto a specific topic, people just enjoy kind of just listening, and they forget. Oh, I can call and talk to these people. So but I mean it's good. It's good stuff. It's great content. So, but if you want to call in, we got to call. Time for at least one more call. 813-618-7099. If you want to call in, talk to Jason, or if you just want to tell us what you've been up to, definitely call in now.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be on the topic. I know we're kind of touching third rails here.
For sure, yeah.
But the motto of the show is, if you don't like what we're talking about, or maybe you don't want to contribute to that, you call in and change the
topic.
subject.
Yeah. Change it up. Yep.
The show is yours. The podcast is mine, but the show is yours.
You said earlier you wanted to comment on something that I said, I think, about relationships and leaning on relationships.
Yes, that's a great point. One of the things that Patrick was talking about was the cycle, the life cycle of the gamer. I get in, I buy some games, my eyes go wide, and I go nuts and buy a whole ton of games. And then I got to figure out, okay, Mr. G's from Chi-Town says, not scared, love listening.
He just loves listening. I think that happens to people. They just start listening and they just they want to hear what we're saying. But yeah.
But the life cycle of the gamer, you get to that point where you start to sell off games.
Yeah.
And you talk about having friends that have games. And then I just wanted to make an excuse to kind of excuse this wall of, I don't know why I did it, games. For me, adding games to my collection has become more of because it's a library for my people, for my community, for my friends. Like, here's an example.
Friends like me, by the way.
Star Trek Panic. It hasn't made it back to the shelf yet because 2 years ago, I loaned this out to someone, that Nick Oben.
Yeah.
And, we hadn't been friends for a long, long time, but long enough where, for me, any friend that wants to borrow a game, I will never loan you something I'm not willing to part with.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? So, like, if I loan it to you, it's because I believe, if I lose it, whatever. Our friendship is more important than that, and I will never bring it up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick Oben, me in the chat. There you go.
Hey,
he just brought it back. It's been over 2 years. This game has been at his house, and he just brought it back. And as part of the Beans and Dice community, for me, the buying of the games now, my life cycle went from I'm collecting, I want it all for me, is for, you know what? If I can help somebody in the community play something that they want to play without having to buy it, we do a monthly game day. Every month we do a game day. We get 20 people or so out there. You want me to bring stuff? You tell me what you want. My library's open. I'll bring it with me. Y'all can play with it. If I've known you more than a week, you can take it home with you and bring it back to me next month. Like that's kind of how the community's been.
Wayne says some serious late fees there. Yeah. Return that to the library.
I told Nick I would take his name off the list. We're going to send some Goombas to go break his kneecaps.
Go get the game back. Track it down. Yeah.
But then that brought up what Jason talked about with the cafes, because cafe is another part of that life cycle.
Oh, yeah.
I'm starting to get to that life cycle where, you know what, maybe I don't need to buy it because we have a nice cafe now.
I've been there for a little while now.
And we can play games
doing
there.
Great business as far as I've only been there once, but it was booming the day that I went to that one game day.
It was popping this last Saturday when we had our game day.
Your daughter was born?
Yeah.
They're doing good business on weekends. I know the weekdays are slow over there, but Your Turn, a board game cafe here in Wesley Chapel, just up the road. So one of our buddies owns and operates Your Turn, and it's awesome idea. I mean, he does custom coffees, and they're now selling
ice cream.
Some ice cream. Yeah, brings in the kids, the alcoholic beverages for the adults. We got a call coming in.
Oh, I'm glad to see that. Beans and Dice Podcast. State your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, this is Kyle from Chicago.
Hey, Kyle. Mr. Jeeves, how are you?
Pretty good. Jason, great to have you on this show. It's awesome hearing you guys all have these discussions. It's been wonderful so far.
Thank you.
I just wanted to bring up a quick question. Just talking about like collections and the expense of the hobby and stuff like that. And I just want to throw it out there. A lot of board game YouTubers that are put out a lot of content and stuff. One of the most common things you see is a wall of collection behind these YouTubers, and can that psychologically play into if you're just a person getting into the hobby and you start discovering like the Dice Tower and all the various channels and stuff, and walls of collections, and you're like, oh my gosh, should I be building this collection? Can that start affecting people in their psychology into wanting to purchase more games to try to keep up with, and do the content creators have sort of an influence on that?
Mm-hmm.
Damn, bro, just punch me in the gut, Kyle.
Yeah.
I know. It's just a thought I was just having.
We were talking about Carlos and his 300 to 400 games, but yeah.
But Kyle's a member of our board game community, and he's been showing pictures of the shelving that he's starting to build. And I remember you, Kyle, talking about how you felt about having so many empty shelves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a valid point coming from Kyle here. I'm glad we got a behavioral specialist on the line to help talk us through this.
Yeah, I mean, so it goes both ways, right? I mean, so yes, there is a sense. Actually, I mean, the board games, it's more the enthusiasm, right? And it's more like when you get like a couple of people together and they look like they're having so much fun. Like Will's tabletop, right? When Will Wheaton was doing tabletop, like, you know, you see the people getting together and, you know, they're so knowledgeable about games and they get swept up and everything. That actually has a more kind of evangelistic edge to people than like seeing a big wall of games, right? And so the big wall of games can definitely kind of see, you know, it makes an impression. I'm not saying it doesn't. I think that when in terms of like, you know, what really pulls at a person, it's are they watching fun? Are they watching somebody that's having fun? And if it's like a bunch of people together, then that's a mixed thing. It's like, wow, I want to be with these people that are having fun. Or am I watching like a clique? You know, and so like there's that kind of push pull there. And there's another aspect to it, like you know, so as reviewers, we need to communicate that we know what we're talking about. So, you know, it's like, you know, if you
Sure.
So like during the pandemic, there was this big thing, like every reporter, every person who was on TV, they streamed in front of their bookshelf. And if they didn't have a bookshelf, then they had to go get a bookshelf and throw some books in. Like if you look at it, if you look at a lot of the, you know, the content from that like beginning pandemic era, everybody was sitting in front of their bookshelf because
that's deep, bro. That's deep.
That was a really quick way to communicate expertise. So a board gamers, we figured out pretty early that in order to communicate our expertise, in order to get that eyeball and get that trust, we needed this.
Okay.
Because
to show that you've got experience. And,
this is my resume.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. 300 games. If you're not there, you can't talk.
Is that Wingspan expansion still in the shrink?
Well, he's got a bunch of them in there in the shrink still. Yeah.
And actually, it's kind of the reason why I put mine junky. So like I got like, you know, this like random things over there. Like this is literally like over 50% of my collection.
Yeah, but
like,
Baba, you got like Tripoli and Space
got
Core,
Arnak over there.
and I mean, you got good stuff back there.
Yeah, and I got a lot of cooperative and Spirit Island. I mean, I'm a big cooperative fan. So,
but then like, he drops that big hammer when he shows the Shadows of Camelot. Like that's how early I'm in. I got Shadows of Camelot.
And my very first, I think my very first 2 videos, I had like cans of food. Because that's what my literally legit, like I just have like just random crap in my basement, and people were saying, "Oh no."
Yeah.
They're
Makes
like, no,
sense.
just go with the board games.
This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's talking about SpaghettiOs.
Yeah, Progresso it was.
Okay. Sorry.
So like, I mean, so it's a great question. I think there is a tug, but the benefits of having a big wall of games, they kind of they speak as well. So that's why you're going to continue to see something like that.
Interesting.
I never thought about it like that, and that makes a lot more sense. That's a great way of looking at it.
You know, I gotta say, Kyle, you brought up a valid point because even me with this wall, like I'll watch Alex from Board Game Co.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'll watch others, and I see the amount of like half $1,000 games on their shelf, and I feel inadequate.
Yeah.
And I got this behind me, and I watch them, and I'm like, man, look at that deluxe Kickstarter, that deluxe Kickstarter. Man, they got it. They either got it because they got cash money, or B, they got publishers that love them.
Yeah.
Right. And then I feel like I'm just some schlub with 400 followers on YouTube.
You bought 99% of these, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you're right. It even impacts me.
Of, like trying to keep up with the Joneses thing in the board game world, you know, like, and it's like the hotness and all that stuff. And sometimes it's like, well, I want to keep rounding out my collection, and you keep purchasing. At what point, like, I mean, you probably have a bigger collection than, you know, you show anybody that's not into board games, you know, even a small collection, they're going to be like, whoa, what is all this? I've never even heard of any of this stuff, you know? So it's kind of a tricky thing. And, it's like I had to come to terms recently with the whole Castles of Burgundy campaign.
Right.
After watching Jamie and Jason talk about a variety of campaigns and that topic, I sit back and I go, I can get Castles of Burgundy, one of the older editions, and I can still play the game. Why do I need the deluxe version? Why am I spending this money? I'm not even I don't even have a regular game group right now. So why am I trying to build up a collection for what?
Right.
At a point I stopped becoming a player and I become more of a collector. And then you're just spending money on something that's sitting on a shelf and looking pretty, but it's not getting to the table. I'd rather get my stuff to the table that I have and then start adding on to it if I start getting more things played.
And that's exactly where I ended up. I ended up realizing my games aren't really doing anything, especially recently, especially with the baby. And then we've had a rough year, me and my family. But it's just time to let go. And I realized, I asked to come over tonight. I knew one of them would at least have Maglev Metro, so we played it live here. And I was like, it's something I hadn't played yet, and I knew I wanted to play. So I was like, hey guys, can we just play this? Do you mind?
Yeah.
So, you take advantage of. Not take advantage, but just lean on your.
No, it's not taking advantage because
Yeah.
I put myself out there. Last Friday I was gonna hang out with Nick, and he had a friend who was just looking to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And you can kind of hear when people just need to get out and commune with others.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey man, I know you didn't plan on having people over, but can I bring a buddy?" And I'm like, "That's what I'm here for."
Yeah.
The community needs people.
That's what board games are
it's
about,
okay to not
man.
be okay right now,
Yeah.
and say that and ask for that community. That's what I'm here for, man.
Exactly. And board
Glad
games
to
are
have you
about
out.
bringing people together.
Yeah, unlike Rob, I believe that without the other person on the other side of the game, the board
come
game
on
would be
now.
nothing.
I don't solo games, so that says something, right?
I got my start as a solo game podcast. I did
really?
190 episodes called Every Night is Game Night.
Wow.
So that's what when I moved to Connecticut, I didn't have nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
My wife lives here, and my wife grew up here. That's why we moved up here because of her family. And we had to flee Brooklyn because I was paying $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom. Get out of here. Gross. And this was 5 years ago. Now it's even worse, $3,000.
I imagine.
So I needed gaming, and I had this collection. I happen to have cooperative games, so I had Pandemics, that there was Multiverse, and I think Space Alerts floating around there somewhere. And it is a way to play these games. And I was so thankful that I could play solo. Now just part of my regular rotation. In fact, I don't think I have. Maybe 10% of my collection is only multiplayer. I think everything I have, everything you see has solo mode.
Wow. That is crazy.
See, I've worked real hard to build a community locally because I was
gonna touch on that.
I need people.
Yep.
I can't be alone, man.
Yeah.
You leave me
I
alone
get
and
enough
I
people.
fall
I'm
into
in
a
a people
hole of
person
despair.
job. I have enough.
Yeah, like somebody said earlier, I mean, we just now with the community we've built here in the Tampa area. I forget who it was who was talking earlier about. Well, we could easily put together, and people have talked about doing just a little Tampa convention here, which is the Beans and Dice. A whole weekend. We just have people bring their own games. We could have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 games, and way more than we could play. And so I hit that realization about a year ago. I was like, you know what? There's enough games in our community right now. I don't need to buy games, and we've got certain people in our community who are the Kickstarter folks who we know if it's the new hotness, that guy's probably going to have it. That girl's probably pre-ordered it. It's probably on its way. And I have, for the last year, I haven't hardly bought a game. It's just like, and I'll throw
or a BGA subscription.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So throw you under the bus a little bit too. I was going to mention just Carlos, and I had these conversations with my wife. There was a time there a couple years ago. Every time I wanted a new game, and I was like, I'm going to get this game, and then I would turn around, and Carlos had already bought it. And I told my wife, I was like, you know what? I'm getting to the point where I don't think I'm going to buy anything because every time I tell Carlos I want a new game and a new game is hot, he goes and buys it. So I have no reason to buy these games anymore. So for about 6 months, I was competing. It was like every time I was like, all right, do I tell him about this game? Because I want to get it. I don't want him to get it first because then I can't go buy it. So yeah, I'm throwing you under the bus a little
He's
bit.
hitting me with the Jedi mind tricks.
Yeah, but it was a thing. And I was like, you know what? He's going to beat me to it. So I might as well just wait.
So Kyle, the answer is you need to move south.
Yeah, come down this way. Yeah. We'll hook you up. Yeah.
We now have babies the same age, so you know.
Oh, that's true.
Same here too.
Yeah,
We
Pat.
gotta- you
all
get
with
them-
it.
get
New
all three
infants
of them
within the
together.
same
Come
year.
on. Do you have a girl or a boy?
Little boy, 2 months
I have a
old,
boy.
Declan.
Yep.
Tall kid.
2 months? Wait,
Yeah, 2 months.
Yeah.
2 months?
Mm.
Nice.
He's
Congratulations.
been sharing. He's tired like me. Like we're tired.
Yeah.
Like no
No,
sleep
God.
tired.
Is she still staying?
Don't even have time to game. I mean, every once in a while, we'll get in. So,
But you've been joining us on the BGA, so we're glad to have you as part of the community, man. And we've had Kyle on the show. Jason is because Kyle has a background in videography and photography.
Yep.
Nice.
So we had him on the show
Spirit Island.
specifically so that I can ask questions about how to work cameras.
Yeah.
Because it's not my thing.
And he's a big fan of Spirit of Island. He's got a nice photo spread of some stuff he did with some
It's-
Spirit Island stuff.
it's
which
my
is
favorite game.
great game.
If you
Yeah,
ever
it's
have
great.
There it is.
questions
I
on
got
camera
everything.
work and video stuff, Kyle's your man.
Cool.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks for calling, Kyle.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Take care.
See you online for the BGA Burgundy tournament.
Yeah. Castle of Burgundy tournament. Yeah.
That gets us past 10 o'clock. You know, that's kind of how it works here. We take that call until it gets us past 10 o'clock. Then I shut the phone line down and we do it again next week.
That's it.
Anything in the comments you wanted to hit up? We usually
Oh, yeah,
if
we
you
never
got
even
just
got
a
to
few
go
more
to the
minutes, Jason. We
comments.
told you it would be an hour, but we usually just hit the comments at the very end just to make sure we didn't miss anything important. But so we'll take a quick scroll.
Chris says, my comment to Jamie was that he could still include. Okay, that was the one right before it. The discussion brings to mind the Stonemaier viticulture debacle a few weeks ago regarding some of the Conquistador visitor cards that gave bonuses to the players. Stonemaier opted to replace the cards.
Right.
He continues with, my comment to Jamie was that he could have still included such cards, but the cards could have had
Inimical. Yeah.
Inimical
English is not my
Bad.
first language.
That's a fifth grade
Crappy.
answer right there, man.
That's a 10-point word
Dude,
there.
that is a 25-cent word,
Yeah.
and I do not have change for $1.
Inimical effects rather than the beneficial, reflecting the theme of these nasty guys into these mechanics.
You know, I'm with Chris on that one. Like, the fact that conquistadors were included didn't bother me as much. I think the part that they were a benefit was the part that, like gaining something from it with no cost, I guess takes me to the piece of that was the problem.
We're talking
Well,
about viticulture?
New
The
Viticulture World,
Viticulture
which
World,
actually
yeah.
Oh,
we
the
have an
co-op
unopened
one?
box. It showed up.
Oh,
Wayne's
wow.
copy showed up.
Oh, yeah, it's over there.
Wayne
Yeah.
said we could open it, but I'm gonna leave Wayne to open that. But Jason, what are
next week.
your thoughts on the viticulture?
Okay, so I think people reacted to Maggie's video. Maggie from Thicker Theme,
Right,
where it
right, right.
started.
You had to react. It hurt.
Like,
For her.
yeah, people
Yeah.
reacted. It's like, okay,
hurt to
you're too
watch her.
sensitive, and you know you did the whole thing. You're too sensitive. We should have history in our games. Blah blah blah. Blah. It's like, okay, I'm okay with history in a game. I'm not okay with whitewashed history in a game, and people don't need to realize that we, like, as Latinos, we live with whitewashed history of colonizers every single day of our lives. My family's from Ponce, Puerto Rico, named after Juan Ponce de Leon, who was a S-head. I don't know how much I want to go into that. Like, that dude's a colonizer. If he saw me, like, you know, looking taino and all kind of thing, he would have.
But you go to
no
Ponce and you
problem.
can't ignore the giant fountain.
Right.
Beautiful fountain there.
Beautiful fountain with the Leon
in the
there,
square
all
with
that
the
kind of
bomberos
stuff.
next door. Right. All
Right.
beautiful there.
And you can go anywhere. You can see Cortes Street and Pizarro Street and Amerigo Vespucci. America, like, that's what named after another colonizing craphead, Amerigo Vespucci. So it's like we live with these lies every single day. And it's like, if you're, you know, regular old person, European descent, and you don't care, but we do. And Maggie's from South America, so that's number one. So like it was the whitewashing of the thing. And then you mentioned it, like, you know, it should have been a negative effect. Second of all, that's not the story Viticulture World is telling. Viticulture is themeless. It's just winemaking. You have fun winemaking. So like they put in the world aspect to do cooperative, and they have like a couple of historical things, but it isn't like a feature. It's just a window dressing. So like, why am I dealing with colonizers in a window dressing game? No, just take them out.
I thought that was weird.
There's a million winemakers that you could have put. Why do I have to put colonizers? Like, we've made wine since the inception. I'm sure you could find so many winemakers. You know, why do you have? It's a sales thing, right? It's an
You
attention
talked
thing.
about it in one of the maybe a couple months ago. I remember it. You talked about, and it really hit me different when you said it this way. When you live in a small town and you have no access to traveling the world, and you want to explore outside of your culture, right, of your people, you can only go as far as your means will let you. You got a bike, all you can do is go to the strip mall up the road and maybe the Taco Bell. So your experience of Mexico is
Taco Bell.
a Mexican pizza. Right?
Yeah.
So like the designers of the game, maybe their experience as far as they know is South America conquistadors. That's the stereotypical connection.
Right.
But
I mean,
you're
they
right.
talked
That
about-
is
they
so
talked about, like-
wide. That's so widespreading. Like most people will connect conquistadors in South America.
Right.
It's
and like,
easy. It's lazy.
They did history, like apparently because they responded, like they did some of the research on to learn about like winemaking history. But if you don't have the context, then you're gonna stop at the top 5 names that she put on Google. Like Wikipedia is so responsible for so much of the history in our board games, and it's the surface stuff. You know, they'll tell you. Like I see a lot of designers are like, yeah, that's exactly what I did. Just looked off Wikipedia for 5 minutes, and this is the history of our game. And it's like, that's why you need the consultants. And I guess we'll end here. I am a cultural consultant, so I am.
And this is where I wanted to go.
I am. You can hire me. You could refer me, and I will work with publishers. I've worked with a bunch of publishers. Unfortunately, because games take so long to come out, I can't like talk about a lot of the games that I've worked on. Actually, one game with my name on a culture consultant. Give me 1 second. Hold on.
Oh, let's show it.
Got a show and tell. Yeah.
He's old when he grunts, when he moves.
I've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Because this is heavy.
Whoa! Look at that. There's Burn Cycle. Yeah, very nice.
I am the cultural
That's got your name on
consultant for the lore book. Yeah.
Nice.
So if
Very
you back
cool.
the Kickstarter, there was a crate that had a lore book in it, and I read a lot of that stuff.
Wow.
And you read something that's because I don't know if anybody knows about Burn Cycle, but like it's a world-spanning, future post-apocalypse type of thing, and it's like, okay, I mean, even in the future, you could make cultural oopsies, So so they hired me. And they got me early in the process enough so that I read it and they would have been able to make changes. I consulted on the art, consulted on the lore, and the game is better. And it's like, it's no muss, no fuss. I'm not out to cancel anything like he's pointed out before. Carlos says, I'm not out to cancel anything. I'm out to make things more resonant. Like if I was a cultural consultant of viticulture, I would have been like, just take those 2 cards out. What are they doing here? That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Swap
And
it out for
and
some
add
better.
in something else. Nobody's going to miss it. Unless you're telling that story. Unless you're telling a colonizer story, there's no need for it to be in there. It's just something that we're used to. And I don't like, just because we're used to it, that's not a good enough reason to, just to have it in there just for the heck of it.
Yeah, one of the things that bothers me most, especially like even in a work professional environment, is why are we doing it that way? Because that's how we always done it. I'm like, no,
Right.
That's not an answer.
It's not an answer.
Right? That's not an answer. It's not the right answer.
It's an answer.
It's an
It's not
answer.
the right answer.
It's not the
but
right
yeah,
answer.
Exactly. But I have a
So
feeling.
so I'm very willing to work with publishers. I've worked with European publishers as well. So that's like the more difficult thing because in America, we're kind of used to it. We're talking in this whole cultural thing. The Europeans think we're nuts. The Europeans think like,
Imagine. Yeah.
oh yeah, they're like, why? So much racism. You guys are talking race. And so it's like, I'm even talking to the Europeans and some of their publishers. And trying to get them to redo some of the stuff in their games and reimagine it, make it a little bit more games for multicultural world. That's what I.
You mean less games with old white guys on them for farming?
Right. And if you're gonna have old white guys, can we mix it up a little bit? Can we not get our 17th game in 13th century medieval whatever? Like you can change it up. I mean, you could do different things. You could spice it up. So I mean, I'm all about more games. I want people to have more fun. I want to pitch a Big Ten. I don't want to take anything away from anybody. I don't want, I think there's people that respond to me and they think I want to replace them or change their fun so that they don't have less fun. Like I'm, taking away their colonizers. I'm not going to take away your I just don't want you to lie. If you're going to make a colonization game, don't call them colonists. Call them slaves. Be willing to,
yes.
suffer
The brown
consequences
disc
of
are
slavery.
not colonists. We did not have an option on unloading your boats. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It wasn't a
Play your
choice to
game,
go to work that day.
So
Well,
that,
and this is-
I always like to say, there's certain games that have influence, right? Puerto Rico has influence, like a lot that influenced a lot of games. So it's like, all right, we can still have Puerto Rico. If you want to play it, but that game shouldn't have influence. It shouldn't influence a whole genre of games. Let's get some more multicultural games in there. And so it's like, it's not about canceling. It's just about realigning what we think the world should look like. And therefore what we think our gaming world should look like.
And going to even further extremes, I mean, it was made some waves. I guess a little less than a year ago when they announced Isaac Childress announced with Frosthaven that he had brought in a consultant, and they were looking at the parallels even in this fantasy world of where slavery and things like that could be kind of laid on that idea. And so they went back and reworked a bunch of the storyline, and we're looking at it. And so that kind of blew my mind. I was like, in this completely made up fantasy world where I would have, and again, I'm a white guy, so what can I say? But I would have never drawn those conclusions and been like, oh, this is a parallel to slavery and, in whatever century that was. But they're going back. So this is the big buzz right now. So I have a feeling we're going to see a bigger push towards this, more of this. And I guess certainly that's gonna benefit what you're doing right now. But this is going to, I think we're going to hear a lot more of this going forward. Yeah.
I mean, to me, like it screamed off the page to me as soon as I read the first page of the book. So it's like, okay, you have humans who are the dominant species, and they're newly arrived in this land, and they've they've displaced the natives, which in the lore of the game are the Enochs and the Vermlings.
Yep.
And you look at the Vermling lore, and they're all dressed in feathers, and they're all like native shamans and all that kind of thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, immigrants coming to a new world, displacing. Even
they might as well be blue people and this be like the Na'vi
Avatar,
right. It basically that story, and even spastic 0909 on Reddit was like, oh, it's a parable for colonization. I was like, if even this person sees it, this is not hard.
I mean, I'm Kevin Costner, and this is Dances with Wolves. I mean, it's.
And I talked to Isaac about it. He's like, yeah,
it's a thing. Yeah.
I mean, because he made the lore in like 2014. We were on having these conversations, and he thought he just followed the rule of cool, and when you follow the rule of cool in a cultural quote unquote vacuum, then stuff's gonna sneak in there, and that's okay. I'm not gonna shame anybody for it. I just want to articulate it, and I like with Burn Cycle, I pointed out some things, and they were really thankful, and product's better. It's just that's all it is.
Yeah,
I love how
like that just happened with Lizzo. It just happened with Lizzo, right? You know about this that whole thing that happened with her. Yep. She put an unfortunate word in one of her songs. Someone said something. It's like, all right,
she made an edit. She made an edit.
That's it. One edit.
And then can we move on? Right? Like that. That's the key. Is where people were gonna make mistakes. Let's fix it and let's move on.
That's it.
Because there were words that I've used that I didn't know impacted people the way they were, but I am so appreciative of very specifically, I'm thinking of a situation of the guy that took me aside. We had a walk, and we had a conversation. Hey, Carlos, when you use that word, here's what it meant to me. And man, I tell you what, that word is gone from my vocabulary. Gone.
Right.
Not because of. I mean, I grew up using that word. I grew up in the 90s and the aughts. It's just, it's a word I used, and grew up in the hood. It's a word I used, and when the way he described it, said, you know what, I will never use that word.
A little context to it, yeah.
And I will make sure my kids never hear me use that word. And when they hear someone use that word, I'm gonna call them out to say, we don't use that word. Right? And it's not a bad word. It's just a word enough that it impacted someone. We can do better, is what I'm saying. Even I have messed up. We can do better. And that's what I love about it, about Jason's aspect, his approach. Even though he and I, we will not agree on everything. We're both Latinos, both Puerto Ricans. Rob will probably confuse us if he sees us out.
All look alike. All right.
It's okay. Y'all look alike to me, too.
I know.
I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, because I had our first Puerto Rican guest on, but my mom is watching for the first time ever. Ever. I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And my mom popped in the chat to say hi for the first time ever. So it must be a coincidence that I brought another Puerto Rican on board. And she's like, I got to watch.
The radar.
Bendición. That's nice.
I know. So on that note, I want to thank Jason.
Been a great conversation
for spending time with us.
This has been great.
Thank you for challenging the community, challenging me in my thought processes, because you're right. We grew up with the whitewashing as normal, right? Like I said, half my family is the European Puerto Rican side, the white side. Yep. I'm the brown one in my family. Robert can attest.
Yeah.
I'm like the one brown one in my family because of that recessive gene. The rest of my family is white. They pass off as, my brother Eduardo was Eddie, right? That's easy. He can pass off as an Eddie. I can never pass off as a Charlie. That's not gonna work. I'm always Carlos.
Yeah.
So it is something that I have to challenge myself on. Like, why do I feel like this is okay? And that's where your channel really steps in. Is making me think, and that's what matters. Because as you say, right? What's your motto at the end of your show? I want to hear it.
If you can change your mind, you can change the world, people.
Amen. That's it. That's
Good
the
stuff,
whole reason
good
I'm
stuff.
glad to have you on.
Yeah.
Folks, we are the Beans and Nice podcast. In today's show, your hosts, Carlos, Rob,
I'm Rob.
and Pat, and our guest host tonight, Jason from Shelf Stories. Thank you so much, Bobby. Let's not make this the last time we get together.
Get Pat back on camera for the end shot. You got him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There for the last few minutes.
Wait.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go, Pat. You get the close in.
Oh, you get the
you say
sole
bye to the
solo
folks.
shot.
Shout out to your kids. There you go.
Have a good night, everybody.
Oh, look at that.
Get to bed, Lily.
We are a podcast about
How we game.
That's right. Not about how to game, not about what to game, but how we game. This is how we do it. Thank you so much for watching, folks. Jason, have a good night. Good night, people. Thanks for watching.
This is
Thanks,
how
everybody.
we do it.
Oh, my God. I never thought about that as a...
Outro.
Oh, that is going to be an outro.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice podcast.
Good night, Jason.
Don't forget to like and
Cuídate, Bobby.
subscribe.
I appreciate you. I really do. Really do. I'm going to hit the end broadcast here.